about to get started. I just want to, again, welcome and thank you all so much for being here with us for a conversation with architect Eugene Ray. My name is McKenna Clifford-Delchiai, and I am the Education and Exhibition Manager here at Jolla Historical Society. This program tonight is part of Jolla Modernism and Architecture Week. We want to thank you for attending any of our programs, and thank you for being with us here this evening. I have been working with Eugene for over the past year. We first met when I worked with him and our historian, Carol Olton, to record Eugene's oral history. We have been talking about hosting a discussion or a lecture for so long. So we are so happy to have finally made it happen. Tonight would not have been possible without Dave Bowes, a former student of Eugene's and a longtime collaborator who is here to facilitate this conversation and who put together the lovely visuals for us to enjoy today. Eugene was born in New Orleans, where he earned a master's in architecture from Tulane University. Relocating to San Diego, Ray served as head of San Diego State University's Environmental Design Program. His Silver Ship studio residence, which Dave Bowes helped build on Nautilus in La Jolla, is a crowning achievement. Eugene has a revolutionary approach to architecture and design. He retired from San Diego State in 1996 with international lecture tours and a concentrated effort researching his French family history dating all the way back to the Middle Ages. He has been published or exhibited in France, Italy, England, Japan, Brazil, Scotland, Mexico, Switzerland, and the United States.
What an honor it is for me to be here and share my life with you. And I thank everybody that made this possible here.
This is the spaceship you saw in 1947.
Photographed by George Adamski.
What we decided to do was hopefully do about 15 minutes of work that Gene did in Louisiana when he was just starting out. And then we'll move to the work that he started in San Diego when he moved here in 1969. So this is the first church you did. You were 21?
Well, no. The ones I did when I was 21 were for the state of Louisiana. They were built at a hospital. This was done out down in the Cajun country when I was studying for my license. This is the first house for a private client in 1959-60 in the forests north of New Orleans.
Did you have a microphone?
I do.
$12,000. This is my own home and studio in the Sausage Sea Forest north of New Orleans at Covington, Louisiana. And my dear wife, Marion, there.
You built this with the help of one carpenter? Or?
That's right. I had two carpenters begin, but one of the carpenters decided a lady needed his talents more than I did.
Gene has, I started working with Gene in the special collections at San Diego State University in 2012. And a lot of the work that we've transferred, there's been thousands of documents, but a lot of work that Gene does is he'll go back into a project and he'll document it in these graphics, and they're wonderful. We've got an hour to show his work, and this is just scratching the very tip of the iceberg. I've had the fortune of probably photographing a lot of the work. We've got over 400 original graphite on vellum drawings that were transferred to the university, but then thousands of these, really thousands of these documents, and I probably put my eyes and hands on most of them. Why did you decide not to do this project?
Yeah, well, it would cost too much. I had I had only $13,500 to build, and this would have cost me more. So I went to the other design. This is just a little camp for a friend I did at that time.
You know, I think the other thing that's wonderful about these are, probably can tell, they're all hand drawings now. We're in an age where, you know, architects do everything with, you know, it's all digital. You could probably get ChatGPT to render something like this, but it wouldn't have quite the charm.
This is the most important structure that I did in Louisiana. In that the living room is a greenhouse, and there are sliding panels that separate the secondary rooms to the major room. This was published in New Orleans in the Times-Picayune newspaper. This was built for $25,000.
Were you influenced by Japanese design for the sliding?
I'm sorry, what?
The Japanese design for the sliding?
Yes, I've always been very interested in that kind of light touch architecture. This is the largest house I built in Louisiana for the Seligman family, and the first use of circles. Circles and curvilinear design became very important to me. I'm very much interested in nature. I always used to tell my students nature is our best guide. And ultimately, as you will see in the later work, which I value more than this early work, that the circle and curvilinear design were very instrumental in my design work. I did this jazz workshop in the city of New Orleans right before I came to California. I was a graduate student at Tulane University, and I was invited to design this jazz workshop, and I got out and built it in the dead of winter, 68, 69, earning my master's degree.
Something I think that's remarkable about this, Gene has long been interested in color and light, and this is you can see between the two slides the color changes. What you're saying, there's a
light operator looking through that slit on the back circular design, the back wall, that adjusts the color to the music. Now, this little apartment was published in New York, the Trail apartment in the Vieux Carré of New Orleans. It was an open outbuilding, not very large, but you will see that I expanded the space laterally in a visual way using the super graphic. Now, I did this house toward the end of my work in Louisiana, and I didn't realize at the time I was hired to design houses for the scientists in the space program in Alabama. And this was the largest of the group, and I found out that this was for Werner von Braun. I'm happy to tell you that I was pleased to design this for a black family, and I did 2 houses for black families, one in Louisiana, one in California. My great-grandfather was one of 7 state legislators that voted to free the slaves in Louisiana. Emancipation was very important. Now, this is my first biomorphic structure with its more natural curvilinear lines. And I did this drawing in Louisiana before I came to California, but it kind of previews what I did later in California. It's ferro-cement shelled structure and was designed for a landscape office in West Virginia. You see a side elevation of that with partial section. And a few other biomorphic designs also. I use collage a lot in my graphic work. This is my MFA exhibition at Tulane University in June of 1969. We were landing on the moon the next month, and I was very inspired by that, having seen my UFO at age 15. And so you can see the centerpiece in this exhibition is a stylized craft. This is our studio at San Diego State University, where I started the program in the autumn of '69. And you will see a lot of geodesic dome and spherical models there. On the left rear is the universal spheroid, my major concept in California. It's a spherical design with two skins that open up like the eyelid of a human. Armstrong Teflon.
Fortunately, there's several of us here that are alumni from that period, and I got to tell you, I transferred from San Bernardino Valley College in a kind of nuts and bolts architecture program to this, and when I walked into the studio room, Gene had the curtains closed, and everything was illuminated with work lamps. And it was the most mysterious space I'd ever been in. I was like, yeah, this is the right place.
That's our first field trip to Los Angeles. We had an air structure we built for $50, 50 students. Each person put up $1, and we went to see Frank Lloyd Wright's Taliesin and also Arco Santi. We did a lot of field trips from then on.
A lot of field trips. I went back to the 1977 San Diego State catalog to look up the courses that were offered. And this is a list of these courses. The other thing I looked up was the cost, and it was $86 a semester to go there. I remember putting it on my credit card.
You had a credit card?
Yeah.
I bought a heat sealer from Edmund Scientific Company, and we built a lot of these air structures. And Earth Day, we would have an exposition out on the campus.
These were fantastic multimedia immersive exhibitions. We also sometimes would do them in Montezuma Hall, and they were really unbelievable in scale and design, imagination.
One of my graduate students built that model on the lower right, a really wonderful project. Now, this is the synergetic environment class. I taught 7 classes at SDSU. In this one, I had the students building full-scale 10-foot volume projects.
This was the class that so I took the course description right from the catalog. And when I was a student at San Bernardino, I'm looking through the catalog, I saw the description of this class, and I said, man, I've got to go there.
Now, this is my most valued large project for the government of Iran, a library, an international competition project. The sad thing is that they ousted the Shah while we were working on it, and they never followed up on the project. But at any rate, it's a beautiful model built by a student, Mario Lara, and 2 students, Yoshiki Matsuhisa. And I had another class, environmental media. I taught photography of projects, and this is an example of the kind of work that we did in those years. This project is designed to be built out of structural glass. Now, I had a lot of guest lectures, some really marvelous designers. That's John Lloyd Wright and Bruce Goff on the upper left with myself, and here we see Paolo Soleri and Bruce Goff posters. We were fortunate to be able to bring in a lot of good speakers over the years. This is the silver ship that Dave and 3 other students I hired have built with me over the year 1979, 80, and on a very steep site on Nautilus Street. It has a very large truss that spans 40 feet and 10 feet high for the studio space on the 2nd level. And the dining and living below, you can see the lighting is controlled with movable awnings. That drawing you see on the left, I have the original on the table here after our presentation. You can come up and take a look at it. The one in the upper right was the original sketch for the silver ship.
Can you talk a little bit about the way that you made these drawings? It's pretty unique.
Well, I discovered that if I used my oscillate machine, I could take the lithographic negatives and run through, and I would get a blueprint result. And it takes Prismacolor very well for rendering, and I taught that technique in my classes. You can see how steep the slope is. The head of the building department downtown told me he thought it was unbuildable, but we proved him wrong on that. And we built this house for $45,000 in 1980, and probably it's the most economical house since the Second World War in La Jolla. That's Dave on the lower right. You see. It was a very wet winter, and it was not an easy task.
We knew nothing about laying block. Gene had was it brother-in-law that was the contractor?
A contractor for what?
He was a general contractor. Anyway, he came down and he gave us a
Well, it was
afternoon.
my cousin's.
Your cousins, yeah.
Yeah.
He gave us an afternoon demo on laying block, and we said, well, would these have to be curved? And he said something like, well, you're on your own. And what we did was we set up basically a big beam compass that swung around and had a plumb bob that came down. So it was all very analog, and I think it worked out pretty well. Then here we are waiting to pour, I think the second big pour that would grout the CMU block, and then the slab that is below the kitchen area.
There are 4 students, and we had a 5th student who did the electrical. Mario, Laura, Dave, Chris, and
What is this, 50 years later?
that's right. That was my 2019 exhibition Dave curated in the downtown gallery of SDSU. It was not easy building those trusses, but it gave me a clear span space for my drawings. For 25 years, I produced thousands of drawings in that studio.
We built an OSHA-approved crane, you can see with a come-along, to pull up everything up in place. So if anybody's been along Nautilus Street and seen this building, you realize, so all the materials had to be delivered onto the street, and then we'd have to walk all of it up the drive and then haul it up the hill. So we would spend probably almost as much time getting materials up as we did building.
The roof is lamella. I had a Southern Pine manual that showed how to build a lamella structure and gave it to my engineer, and it worked beautifully, and it saves a lot of money because you have short timbers. These were 6 feet long, and so it was built very economically, and the city knew nothing about the strength. They grumbled, but fortunately, we were able to do it. Ironically and synchronistically, my ancestors had built the Dome sugar mill in New Orleans in the 19th century, 18th century, that was based on a design in Paris. And that very year, that was 1790, Thomas Jefferson built his Monticello Dome. And these are Knights Templars. And my people were Knights Templars in France. They helped St. Bernard build his 250 monasteries. Very early modern type design. This is in my studio at the Silver Ship.
I have a quick question about the lamella beams. Did you cut the curve just with a safer saw, or how'd you cut those?
So I went out to San Diego State and we delivered all the 2x8s out there. And while everybody was working on something else, I spent a week or so cutting them on a bandsaw. And then we took them, and they were all exactly the same piece. And then we cut the angles, which were given to us by the engineer with a radial arm saw. So we brought them up there. They're all exactly the same piece. Putting it together was a little bit more difficult, but thanks.
This does relate to the geodesic dome, of course. Now, I'm proud to tell you I built that myself out of scraps around the site. That is the buffet between the kitchen and the dining area. That's another view after we finish the house.
These curved elements we did on site with fender board and a glue. It was like a resortional glue. We built a jig, and then we would clamp them in place, one by one.
That photograph was a collage, which is something I've used a lot in my work graphically. And this is the studio, pretty good shot of it. 40 feet long, 25 feet wide, a wonderful place to work. Now this is a shot of one of the Ferrucci villas. It has 3 different suites. And you will see I have the working drawings. There it is, in fact, the working drawing for the Ferrucci villa at Escondido. The parent suite on the left, family suite in the middle, children's suite on the right. First request of the parents to me was they didn't want their children to be close to them. Now, Dave made this aerial photo by going to your Google map, right?
Google Earth.
Google Earth. It was not easy to get photographs of the house. The clients didn't want publicity. This has happened to me a lot with my California villas. And this is a classic version of the California villa. I was mostly interested in economy houses, but wealthier people started showing up in my classroom. So I figured a way to design villas based on Italian villas, and I spent some time in Italy studying Italian villas. Ferrucci's are, of course, Italian descent, and they spend half the year in Lucca, Italy. I did a lot of these California villas, I call them. This one's solar heated, 4 greenhouses on the south side, sleeping on the roof under an openable dome. Now, I gave SDSU all of my vellum drawings that I could find. I still have a handful. But I made these drawings all myself, I'm proud to tell you, before computer graphics came in. That's why my eyes are failing me today. This is one of the California villas. Another one. Outdoor living, outdoor exercise, health. Health was very important to me. Ecology, economy, health, social concerns, all part of our environmental design program. And then biomorphics, ferrocement design. You may know that they build fishing vessels here in San Diego out of ferrocement. And in 1960, Nervi, the great Italian engineer, built the marvelous structures for the Rome Olympics out of ferrocement. That inspired me.
What's the medium that you use to draw this?
This one was done with some watercolor, I believe, but I did use oil crayons a lot and Prismacolor. I always traveled with those oil crayon and Prismacolor when I was in Europe. I went to France 45 times. I was so inspired by my heritage. It's known as genetic memory. Dave has done a wonderful job of putting all these graphics together into a media presentation. That's a ferrocement shell structure.
Is this the one you tried to get a permit and it was denied?
Yeah, well, what happened is we had an engineer at SDSU who was using the first computer at SDSU. He was with us at SDSU, and the computer was at University of California, San Diego. And he went there and he made the calculations. We brought it to La Mesa Building Authority, but they were backwards. They didn't know how to check the calculations. So they denied a permit, which is a shame because it's an extremely strong structure. These vessels crush underwater rocks. This is rammed earth. This is a studio in the desert, studio residence in the desert. They dug this up. This is enameled metal with the water going over it, causing glistening effect. Sculpture. I became interested in smaller structures that might be used for exercise and health, kind of spa designs. And I've made a number of these. I'm trying to interest in the chateau and building one of them. Claudia, we have a marvelous exercise person, Claudia, and she liked that particular design. Now this is probably the best design I made in California for a residential structure using cosmic consciousness and bioenergy, in that it's using spherical and conical volume. And it was the original design I made for my home in La Jolla. But I knew I would have a difficult time getting a building permit because it looked so unusual. The interesting thing is they told me that the silver ship when I built it looked unusual. So I got out and I photographed every house on the street and no two of them were alike. That was the last I heard of that complaint. Now this is my favorite of Dave's collage, and you can see Dave has done a wonderful job collaging my drawings, in that it reflects the biomorphic, biotronic energy structures that I've worked on, of varying sizes and uses. The one in the lower right was a competition project for an entrance to San Diego on Highway 5 from the north. And it's tensile structure with fiber optic lighting. I was inspired by the Golden Gate Bridge. in San Francisco, and I thought this would be a spectacular way to arrive in San Diego through this tensile structure over the highway. But I don't think the city ever really did anything with this competition. That's a small version of my universal spheroid, 25 feet in diameter, openable spherical volume. And there's the largest 65-foot diameter version of universal spheroid. I consider this the most cosmic conscious design I made in California. And it's designed so that in this huge volume, sets can be built by artists so that the owner's interest in lights might be able to be created into installations within their own residence. And the outer skin is where, using the projector they use in Balboa Park, the OmniMax projector, one could have real environmental media environments in the structure. This was the houseboat version. There's huge amount of energy, electromagnetic energy in these spherical volumes. I think fine-tuned architecture is something I want you to remember me for. I believe someday we will evaluate our structures for health and strength in a way that we value what food we eat today. There are no boxes in nature, I used to tell my students. And so you will see my work certainly is very much involved toward spherical and circular. The French curve, I will say, is one of my favorite drawings. Because we have a time problem, there's a lot of material not shown, but I'm glad Dave included these two drawings. One of the furniture, I've designed a lot of furniture, and on the left, a health spa designed with 5 different levels of treatment. This is a bit of a humorous design. There was a little competition for an outhouse in California by one of the magazines up north. This was my submission of that. In this case, it's within a spherical and conical volume. This is a church, an observatory, and a library designed for Madre Grande Monastery. Now, this project is one that I'm really very much involved and dedicated to. It's called Desert Incidents and relates to the UFO phenomena in our California desert. You know that when I was 15, I saw this great craft over my house at Baton Rouge, and it inspired my whole life. I credit all that you're seeing tonight with the inspiration from that experience. And this design would attract people from all over the world. A museum devoted to the UFO ET phenomena. And you may not know what's going on because the newspapers are so bad. But on the internet, you will find that there is a comet that's just past Mars, and it's going behind the moon. It's traveling a rate of speed that you can travel from New York to California in 1 minute. 1 minute. It's the fastest structure ever seen in space. And astronomers are baffled by it. They believe it may be a reconnaissance vehicle, not just a comet. In fact, they've ruled out the fact that it's a comet. Astronomers from all over the world. Now, my design, and you see it here, for desert incidents, would be this marvelous UFO ET Center of historical presentations, research, Richard Zia, one of our students, made this marvelous animation film you see here for my 2019 exhibition that Dave curated at SDSU Downtown Gallery.
This animation was going as you were walking in, and what was remarkable is that Richard had an elevation and a plan view of this, and from that he created this wonderful animation. Did you work with him on that, Philip?
Some students came to me wanting to build a cafe with multimedia entertainment. Now, you may not know it, but in Ireland, they have out in the fields towers like this, that the plants grow very vigorously around the towers. That is the electromagnetic energy from the towers. So this is one of my spa designs using that phenomenon. Another one. This is really closer to the Japanese tea house. I was always inspired by a Japanese design, and that the tea house especially. Now, I did design a replacement steeple for the Notre Dame Cathedral. You may know they had a huge fire in Paris, and the Notre Dame burnt terribly. The old wooden steeple collapsed immediately in the fire. So at the time, there was some information that there would be a competition for a new steeple. But the old money in France refused to try to do what I wanted to do, and that is build a crystal tower that would be a bioenergy structure over the sacristy area. The sacristy area would be a very strong environment for the church, and I think would be like what was done at the Louvre with the crystal pyramid. This is one of my most recent designs, and I will tell you, some of you here today know my former student, and he was such a good student, he became head of the department, and Kotaro Nakamura developed these graphics you see here assisting me on this project, a museum for radiant architecture.
If you go on YouTube and you Google Eugene Ray, I think it's Radiant Architecture Museum, there is a video of a presentation Gene gave almost exactly 3 years ago at the La Jolla Library, and it captured that presentation with supporting graphics.
I have about 10 videos on YouTube, and I have some on Vimeo, if you want to see more of my early work. Now, Dave, I know this is your favorite of my kind of what you might call economy houses. I call them sports houses. I was inspired by the California sports car, which were originally economical. And why should an economy car be something that's boring and ugly? And so this was my solution for that. And I hope someday Dave might build this. I did a project down in Mexico, Baja, California, and it was a camping type facility. California has been a wonderful place for me to work. I'm very grateful. I came here when I designed hurricane-proof housing for New Orleans that the city couldn't raise the money, or wouldn't raise the money to build. I came to California and I never regretted doing that. You know, it's really amazing for me to see this, to tell you the truth, my dear friends here today, in that I don't see how I did all this. It's like somebody else did it, you know? And I think it was that sighting I made of that UFO when I was 15 that made me somehow able to produce all this. This is a project in Mexico using only natural materials. Now, I'm so happy Dave has these two. That's the red rest of the red roof, and you know them here as derelict and burnt out structures. I wrote the papers and made the presentations that caused them to be National Historical Monuments. Sadly, the opposition these were burnt on my birthday, my 89th birthday, here in La Jolla. They are National Historical Monuments, these two structures here in La Jolla. Why are they important? Less than 1% of the people in the United States can afford to build a house. And it's just tragic that we've lost these two structures, and no one seems to be able to rebuild them. They were in pretty good shape when we started our project to save them. And a lot of people have made an effort to try to restore them, but nobody seems to be able to do it. So I don't understand. In Europe, they do treasure their history. And this is our history. We're lucky. They are the oldest California bungalows in the state of California. They should be in perfect condition today. When we first started doing our work, they were sitting only on sleepers, not on concrete footings. And they were not riddled with termites. They were in good shape. John Redlinger, one of my students, lived in one of these, and I'm happy to tell you he made the original measured drawings for this that helped us get them turned into national monuments. And John went on and worked for SeaWorld here in San Diego and designed the new SeaWorld in San Antonio. John Redlinger, a name to remember. Well, that is, it's me, but that's in the exhibition that Dave so beautifully curated of my work in the gallery of SDSU downtown. And if you look on my Facebook page, you'll see that Dave has posted a whole group of photographs of this exhibition that he took. And I did such a great job in curating the show.
So this is the end of the PowerPoint, but Gene has created a series of graphics beyond all this wonderful architecture stuff he calls metaphysical graphics. And he asked to show them, but he asked to show them to a specific piece of music. So I'm going to get out of this and then get into it. It runs for about 3 minutes, but I think you'll really enjoy it. They're very personal. If you know anything about New Orleans, you can sort of get it, but they're very, very personal graphics. Get out of this.
I got into metaphysical graphics when I always loved to read about the lives of artists and architects. I wanted to know more about the human side of what they did. And with the huge history of my family in France, I've spent a lot of time studying that. I'm looking for someone to write it about it. I have in my apartment here in Chateau La Jolla down the street, I have an archive that's incredible relating to my family's history. So the metaphysical graphics are the human side of what I do. love that tune. It's a train that goes from Chicago to New Orleans. I've been on that train before, and Willie Nelson does such a great job with that tune. Well, thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I'm so delighted that some of my former students are here and some professionals. I'm very grateful for that. And you're welcome to come and see what I brought on the table here. I'm published in Paris. I was in the Paris Biennale and the Venice Biennale. And I'm in this book on visionary architecture. And you can see some of the original drawings in the silver ship under construction. And my ancestors' chateau in the Orient forest of France, where St. Bernard was voted the most admired man in France when he was building his monastery. The whole word catalog, of course.
Eugene, I have a question.
Yes.
You obviously have had an incredible discipline to generate all these images over the years.
Thank you.
Are you still actively producing images like this?
Did I think of what?
Are you still producing images? Are you still drawing?
I have so much to do with the archive.
Uh-huh.
If you look on my Facebook page, you will see my creative work is in what I post on Facebook. Now, I used to have a blog. I did that for years. But Facebook allows me to reach more of my alumni. And it's a humble medium. But I will tell you that the greatest American film was made at Republic Studios. And it was Citizen Kane, the cowboy studio. So I hope I answered that. I don't draw anymore. And you know, it's interesting how when you get to be in your 90s, everything changes. I can't write like I used to write, and I'm sure I couldn't draw. I do make sketches.
Right.
And I had two great students, former students. Robert Gaughan here helps me today, and of course Dave. And we're continuing on. I have this huge archive, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with it, where it should best go. I'm going to New Orleans, blessings, my daughter, helping me for my birthday, 93rd. I hope we can find some support from Tulane and the Historic New Orleans collection. I'm very grateful that the La Jolla Historical Collection has supported and helped me here today. And I'm so thankful for that.
Do you want to see all of Gene's 400 graphite drawings on vellum? Just Google Eugene Ray SDSU Digital Collections, and it'll come up. There's also a really wonderful oral history that he did about 10 years ago. There's an audio version of it, and it's about an hour or so long, and it's really, really good. So there's those resources through San Diego State.
And the 10 videos on YouTube and several on Vimeo. Tommy McIntosh in New Orleans made an incredible video in my apartment here in New Orleans, in La Jolla. It's called Studio Peaks. You might look at it on Vimeo.
Will that last musical piece be posted on YouTube? It's beautiful.
Yes. Oh, I'm so grateful that it's being videotaped now. Colette is doing that. And it will be seen on YouTube.
Well, we can't post with that music, unfortunately, because of the licensing.
Yes, but we don't need the music to get it.
Yeah.
Well, you can just type that in and people can cue it up themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that.
Yeah.
So we'll do some sort of documentation of this presentation and the slideshow that we'll put on YouTube.
One thing that I really wanted to do here, and maybe we can do it on the final, is have the sound of spacecraft to create the powerful cosmic conscious mystery of what's happening in space. I have learned so much recently. I study this daily. It's a shame that you don't see anything in the newspaper. If you go on the internet, there is this gigantic 7-mile wide craft that's been traveling for thousands of years. That may be a reconnaissance craft that's just going behind the sun. It just passed Mars. And we know nothing about it from the standard newspaper coverage. You have to go on the internet.
Is this the one Elon has been talking about?
Yes, yes. Yeah, he's a strong voice on this too. Yeah. He, of course, wants to go to Mars. And there was a worry it was going to crash into Mars. Now, it passed Mars, so that worry is out. And once it goes past and out of our system, God only knows where it's going, but it's pulsating. They have discovered, the astronomers, that this craft, it's kind of alive. It's almost biological, and it's sending information as it goes in space. Look on your internet, people. It's amazing to me, one of the most powerful historical events is happening, and the standard pedestrian knows nothing about it. It's, a very exciting history that's happening while we are on this planet. I'm in my 92nd year, and I know I won't be here too much longer, and I'm very interested in where I'm going. I'm confident that I'm going somewhere. I'm not quite sure where, but I have read a lot about life after death, and I'm very confident that there is life after death. So, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Gene.